and talking about the economy. Dumebi Oluwole is here with us. How are you doing? Compliments of the season. Dumebi, can you hear me?
Hi, Ebuka. Good afternoon. Yeah. Yes, I can hear you very well.
Happy almost 2024. Thanks for joining us today. In an earlier segment, we're talking about the economy and President Tinubu's first budget of the year, of his presidency, I beg your pardon. A lot of people have looked into that budget and are not very optimistic, especially with how it's going to be funded and where all that money is going to come from. Are you optimistic? What do you think things are going to look like? There are also those who are talking about, the Dangote refinery is going to change everything for us. Put us through what to expect in 2024 with the economy.
I would say for the economy generally, if we put everything together, budget, inflation, Dangote refinery, I would say I'm quite pessimistic. And not to be the bearer of bad news, but I mean, with how things are going currently, it's very obvious the government doesn't have enough money to fund the budget. The exchange rate is still, trading higher than what it was a few years ago, and the trend is likely to continue because we don't yet have that lump sum forex that we need to support the currency. Prices will still keep rising due to the fact that the exchange rate is depreciating and the fact that businesses are not just producing enough. The business environment generally will still remain pretty challenging, but then again, there are still some bright spots. You did mention the Dangote refinery, but while that is a good news in terms of, okay, we have a functioning refinery, but when we look at how significant that would, help the economy in terms of lowering petrol prices, that's not really going to be the case, especially in 2024. So it's pretty much still status quo. Apologies to the viewers hearing this. I know it's not good news, but it's still pretty much status quo. And we just expect that things will probably start getting better, probably towards the end of 2024, getting into 2025.
Yes, I hear you, but a lot of people listening to that are wondering, how are we then supposed to cope? Because 2023, a lot of people barely made it through the year. We've seen what happened with the Naira and how it just keeps tumbling. The World Bank, I think, said the number of Nigerians who live below the poverty line has now dropped even more. So I think 104 million people. That is a staggering number of people living in poverty in this country. What needs to be done, short to medium term, with the Naira especially? A lot of people don't understand what's happening. People will say, but the military used to hold it, because people in their lay understanding of how these things work, they say, but the military held it at a certain number. Why can't these people do it? Explain to us why this is different and how things can start changing.
So that's like so many questions in one, but I would start with the exchange rate. So basically, what's happening with the exchange rate clearly is in the jurisdiction of the central bank. And what really needs to happen is we need enough dollars for the central bank to intervene in the forex market. We recently took up some FX reforms by trying to unify all the multiple exchange rates that we have. And the reason why the exchange rate is still depreciating, even though we've taken up these reforms, is because the dollars that we need to support the currency are not just flowing in. So investors are not bringing in as much money as they would have in some 2021 or even the beginning of 2022. So we generally are not so optimistic about that, but clearly the CBN is trying to move towards the path of orthodoxy. Breaking this down, what this just simply means is the CBN is ramping up its efforts and muscling up to bring in that FX that we really need by making sure that interest rates environment is it's attractive enough to investors so they are able to bring in the dollars that we need to support the currency. So there is one bright spot there, just because the CBN is, it's under a new leadership. They're trying to clean up the mess from 8 to 9 years ago under the previous administration, and we expect that would, somewhat instill a little bit of confidence in investors, and they're able to bring in their money, especially foreign portfolio investors. So that's on the part of the exchange rate. So even though we expect the Naira to still keep, trading at what it is currently trading at, we expect that towards the end of the year, we might see the Naira just gain some little strength because of FX inflows coming in. Then in terms of poverty, what the government needs to do, I'm just going to be very blunt here. The government just needs to get its act together. And what this means simply is the government needs to spend more efficiently on the aspects of the economy that will encourage income and boost income for people. And what does this mean in plain terms? If the government is going to provide enough roads, it needs to do that very quickly in terms of providing the roads or creating the roads or building the roads that are very close to the markets that manufacturers need to have access to, so they are not so that their cost of production is lower, and generally just being very supportive of businesses. They need to sort out electricity issues because that's one of the biggest problems for businesses today. A key thing as well is sorting out insecurity, not just sorting out, completely eradicating it, and that requires a lot of effort. In the 2023 supplementary budget and even in the 2024 budget estimates, we did see the government trying to prioritize spending on security and defense, and people just need to see this be fruitful. It's not just the numbers and the budgets that we want to see, but this money is actually becoming a thing where we're seeing reduced insecurity and farmers being able to go back to their farms to boost their output, and that will eventually support manufacturers who are spending ridiculous amounts of money on importing their raw materials. And by this, what will eventually happen if this is the case, because this is almost like wishful thinking now, but if this happens, productivity will increase, output from these businesses will increase. We'll see reduced amount of companies exiting the country, and that way we're able to these companies will now eventually be able to absorb Nigeria's growing labor force, because poverty in Nigeria is not really self-induced. People are willing to work, there are just not enough jobs, and the reason why there are not enough jobs is because it's not the government's responsibility to create those jobs, it's private sector. And the private sector is not enabled because the environment, business environment is tough and challenging. That becomes a problem for the government. So really, again, just to summarize it again, the government just needs to get its act together, really.
Very well put there. I know this is not your job, but why is the Naira scarce?
To be honest, this is just, I would say it's just a repeat of what we saw in Q1, yes. Because there are no economic fundamentals to back what is happening. The only thing that we do know is there is Naira, but the frenzy and panic with people not really being sensitized as to the fact that the Naira is not going to be scarce. So people are literally hoarding the Naira that they have. So I think that's one of the things that is feeding into it, because before the news could spread far and wide that old Naira notes would still remain legal tender, people were already assuming that it would no longer be legal tender, and then we saw some level of dumping, some level of just that panic really, and people started, POS merchants started increasing their transaction costs. They didn't want to collect old Naira notes anymore. Market women didn't want to collect old Naira notes anymore. So all of that frenzy and panic just fed into why the Naira is currently scarce. It's a pretty funny situation, but I mean, the CBN is trying to sensitize people, and we're seeing some level of influx of the currency coming into the system back again. But it's just that we're in public holiday season, so the banks are not really open as much as they would have to actually douse the situation. So yeah, it's pretty a tight situation for people.
Very, very tough, especially in a time like this when people need to spend money. Very quickly now, two promises a lot of people have called lofty dreams that have been made by this government. One, I think Mr. President says he's going to make Nigeria $1 trillion economy in 8 years. We also have the Minister, I think, of Humanitarian Affairs saying that they were going to pull 50 million Nigerians out of poverty in 42 months. How achievable are these, you think?
I would say they're pretty ambitious. It's very interesting to hear the government say that. But I mean, when you look at how political economy and the macroeconomy intersect, you would understand why politicians would always come out with very ambitious and very, interesting numbers to just get the trust of people and get the spotlight, really. But then when you look at the economic fundamentals, you quickly understand and see how almost not impossible, but how difficult and tasking that would be, considering how weak Nigeria's macroeconomic fundamentals are. If you even start from the basics, there are not enough hospitals. Doctors are leaving. Schools are not, very functional, especially public schools. Now with the government adding or releasing, I would say the subsidy on education, you're seeing even federal universities, you're seeing their school fees, increasing. So really, I would say that it's more of a thing. It's a thing of let's see it when it happens, really. And I would say that again, just like what I was saying before. The government just needs to get its act together for people to really believe they have the ability to make these things happen. And again, I think I'll just say this again. It's not the job of the government to get people out of poverty. It's the job of the government to make the business environment, enabling enough for the private sector to do these things that they really want to achieve in terms of lifting people out of poverty, making Nigeria a 1 trillion economy. And all of this just begins with spending right. It's going to be very interesting for you to even hear that as of what the government is spending currently, we still spend least, globally. And it's just not because the government doesn't have bogus budgets, but because they're not just spending right. And spending right simply means spending on good roads, spending on education, spending on health sector, so that the talent and the private sector, the businesses that we need to come in, to make these things happen are encouraged to do so. Right now, Nigeria has special economic zones that are not functioning at its full capacity. Multinationals are not encouraged to set up shop in the country. Even local businesses are looking to divest away from Nigeria into other African countries, especially now that the African Free Trade Agreement is already, taking center stage in the continent. So for us to be that shining star or really be the giant of Africa, we just need to do the right thing of attracting these businesses, and what that simply means. The government just needs to spend right. I will keep saying that because that really now has become the bone of contention. It's the core of our macroeconomy right now. If the government it has gone beyond promises and fine-looking budgets. It has gone beyond that.
I mean, I hear you.
See advertising a yacht.
I hear you there, because I mean, ease of doing business is still very, very fundamental to all of this. And I saw, I think, a tweet from a CNN correspondent say they have been to Nigeria 4 times this year and spent $800 in visas. And he's African. At a time when other African countries are making entry to their country seamless, we're still having all of these bottlenecks. But very quickly now, one sentence or two, because we need to go. Because I want us to leave on sort of a positive note. What's the one thing Nigerians should look forward to in 2024 that might be a bit of a light in the economy?
So I guess the good thing to look out for is that the government is literally, I would say, on edge, and it's an opportunity for them to just do right. So I would say people can hold on to that. For things to really work, the government has to, get things right. And I think that they would start that journey more efficiently in 2024. It wouldn't be as sweet and as rosy, but I would say it's a start to where we're going to get to. We've started with reforms, and I think that if we stick to them, this productivity that I'm talking about and equipping people with income might eventually start, beginning to happen. So yes, I would say that's something for people to hold on to.
We'll hold on to that one, and hopefully 2024 is at least a little better than 2023 has been. Thank you very much, Jimmy, for joining us, and I wish you a great new year ahead.